the Imam can. If the Imam could not do so, then the Prophet ﷺ would not have said, I considered or I've given thought to letting someone else lead the prayer while I go to the homes of those people who are not praying to burn down their homes. So from this hadith, the scholars they deduced that if an Imam has been appointed as an Imam of a Masjid, it's permissible for him, if he has a valid reason not to be present for the praying congregation, to appoint someone else to stand in for him. No. And that's perhaps a question that we all knew the answer to, because we see Imams doing it all the time. But the benefit of reading this hadith tells you and I that perhaps if somebody asked the question, is there proof that allows an Imam to leave his position of leading one of the prayers in the masjid and appointing someone else in his absence? You would know that yes, there is proof, and this is a hadith here at the hand that the Prophet ﷺ said, I was giving thought to instructing young men to collect firewood and then appointing someone else to lead the prayer in my absence. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, the third point of this hadith is something which was the scholars debated upon, and that is, can someone be punished by burning his wealth? Can I punish somebody by burning his wealth? Is that permissible or not? Right? It sounds like it's coming from outside, man. Can I punish somebody by burning their wealth? Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam here he said that he's given thought to burning the homes of people down. And thus and then also some narration says while they were in the homes. So can you punish somebody with fire? The majority of ulama say that both of this is not permitted and not allowed. Because in other hadith, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited one from destroying wealth without purpose. Destroying wealth, ida'atul mal, without purpose is haram. And therefore, this what Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam intention of burning somebody's property down is mansukh, is abrogated by other hadith where he sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited you from destroying the wealth of another person. Even as a punishment, even if that person did wrong, even if he committed murder, punishment can be given. A judge, a qadi will give a ruling how this person should be punished, but you cannot destroy his wealth. No. And also, the Prophet ﷺ, even though in the initial stages of Islam people would be punished with fire, but the Rasul ﷺ at the later stage, he prohibited anyone to punish another person with fire. He said, لا تعذبوا بعذاب الله. Do not punish people the way Allah will punish people. And therefore punishing with fire became prohibited. So there are two meanings that you may derive from this hadith. Both of them have been abrogated. You can't punish by burning somebody's wealth, by destroying someone's wealth. And a person cannot be punished in this world with fire. And that is something our community heard a lot when a group of people burnt a local merchant and he died in that manner. That is not Islam. That is not deen. In fact, the idea of burning, even if he was a merchant and even if he did wrong, burning someone with fire goes directly against the words of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لا تعذبوا بعذاب الله. He said, لا تعذبوا بالنار. Do not punish people with fire. And then the next point in the hadith is the obvious meaning of the hadith, and that is the importance of praying salah in congregation and encouraging us to do so. Not just encouraging us, the Prophet ﷺ has given a harsh warning for those who don't pray salah in Jama'ah. And these are hadith, we must look at them and ponder and reflect. The objective of these hadith is to encourage you and I to be in the masjid and to pray in Jama'ah. No. And you can also imagine now that from these hadith, those same Zahiri ulama that we spoke about previously, this discussion we had previously, they held the view that praying salah in Jama'ah is fard ayn. It was also a view in the Hanbali madhab. In the madhab of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, there was a view that it's fard ayn to pray every salah in Jama'ah. And then the Zahiri madhab, they said, a condition for your salah to be accepted is that you must pray in Jama'ah. And if you don't pray in Jama'ah, then your salah is not accepted. Right? And the Zahiri madhab is, as the arguments are very poor and weak in this regard. One of the ways in which you respond to the Zahiris, because the Zahiri madhab, they don't practice analogy and qiyas. They only take the apparent meanings that comes in the hadith. And these are hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that he wanted to burn down the homes of people that were praying at home. The hadith only speak about 3 salahs. Most of the hadith makes reference to Isha. Some of the hadith makes reference to Fajr and Isha. And other hadith makes reference to Jum'ah. In other words, the time when the Prophet ﷺ said that he wanted to burn down people's home, he's given thought to burning down people's homes. It was only for, in some hadith, Salatul Isha that they were missing, or Fajr and Isha that they were missing, and other narrations, Jum'ah. So if the Zahiri madhab says that this hadith says that you must make Salah in Jama'ah, and if you don't make Salah in Jama'ah, your Salah is invalid, we say, but based on your madhab, then that should only apply to 3 Salahs and not to Dhuhr and Asr. And you say it applies to Dhuhr and Asr as well. Because this hadith doesn't speak about Dhuhr and Asr. It's only speaking about, based on all the various narrations, Isha and Maghrib. It doesn't speak about Maghrib. It's only speaking about Isha, Fajr and Jum'ah. Ala kulli hal. The next question that comes up here is that whose houses were Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam considering to burn down? Who did the Prophet refer to when he said he wanted to go to homes and burn them down? And many of us, we take an incorrect understanding of this hadith. In that, we imagine that this was the Sahaba that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was speaking about. Right? How many times have you heard the hadith? And then we imagine that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was speaking about the Sahaba, that he wanted to go to the homes of the Sahaba to burn them down. But that was not the case. That was not the case. Even though that view is held by some of the ulama, the majority of the ulama, based on clear hadith, they say that these people that the Prophet ﷺ was speaking about were not the Sahaba. Why weren't they not the Sahaba? For 2 reasons. The first reason is the Sahaba almost never missed Salah in Jama'ah. So he wouldn't be speaking about them. The second reason is that the Prophet ﷺ, he said in another hadith, rather, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, and he said, لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُنَا مَا يَتَخَلَّفْ عَنْهَا إِلَّا مُنَافِقْ مَعْلُومُ النِّفَاقِ. He said in the time of the Sahaba, no one used to miss Salah in Jama'ah except a munafiq, a hypocrite, whose hypocrisy was known, مَعْلُومُ النِّفَاقِ. Right? And therefore the Prophet ﷺ said the difference between us, the Muslims, the Sahaba, and the munafiqeen is shuhud al-atama, is that believers come to the masjid for Isha, wa subh and Fajr. And he says, as for hypocrites, la yastati'unahuma, they cannot manage to come to the masjid for Isha and for Fajr. Ajib. And therefore, another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, had they known what they will find at the masjid for Isha, if they knew what great reward, the Prophet ﷺ made reference to animals and meat, عظما سمينا or arqan saminan and mirmataini hasanataini, all that referred to sort of like delicacies or good meat or wealth. He said they knew what they will get, they'll be here for Isha. And the Prophet ﷺ, that type of tone, he doesn't refer to his Sahaba. Because the Sahaba knew the reward that they would receive for praying in congregation, so they never missed Salah in Jama'ah. And thus, the majority of ulama said the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith is actually referring to the munafiqeen. When he said that I wish to gather firewood, to collect firewood and then go down to the homes and burn houses down, he was referring to the hypocrites and not to his ashab. And now you and I, we find ourselves at a juncture where we can ask ourselves, who are we resembling? We should not accuse each other of having hypocrisy. That's something which is very, very problematic. Don't accuse another person of being a munafiq, as I don't accuse another person of being a disbeliever. These type of criticisms or or names that we throw at people, they have a tendency to come back at us. It's like a boomerang effect. Call another person a kafir, the Prophet said that statement comes back to you. And even if you're not guilty, you may do something that makes you guilty of being considered to be a kafir. If you call another person a kafir, and the same applies to nifaq, calling another person a munafiq. No. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ further emphasizing that what he meant by these hadith of the munafiqun, he said, the most weightiest salah for the munafiq, for the hypocrite, is the prayer of Isha and the prayer of Fajr. وَلَوْ يَعْلَمُونَ مَا فِيهِمَا, had they known the virtue of the prayer of Isha and Fajr in the masjid, لَأَتَوْهُمَا وَلَوْ حَبْوًا, they would come to the masjid even if it meant they would come crawling. And then he said, I have given thought of gathering wood and burning down houses. So you can see there's a direct correlation between the two. He first said, the most difficult prayer is the prayer for the munafiq, Isha and Fajr. And he said, if they knew the virtue of it, they would have come crawling. And then he said, I've given thought to ask children to gather firewood and then go down to the houses of those people that are not praying in the masjid. And there's a direct connection between the munafiqeen and the particular hadith that we are narrating now. We also said that there are narrations that suggest that the prayer that Rasulullah was referring to here was the prayer of Jama'ah. In one narration he said, I wish to burn down their houses for they do not attend the prayer of Jama'ah. No. And then there's some detail that I feel is not necessary to get into this morning. The hadith also establishes that Salatul Jama'ah is not emphasized for women. The hadith emphasized that Salatul Jama'ah is not emphasized for women. First of all, it's not compulsory upon women, not fard ayn, as how it's not fard ayn upon us. But it's not fard kifaya upon women as how it is fard kifaya upon us. Neither is it emphasized for them as how it is emphasized for us. And you can see this in the words of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, ثُمَّ أُخَالِفُ إِلَى رِجَالٍ يُصَلُّونَ فِي بُيُوتِهِمْ. He said, after I've gathered the firewood, I will then go to the homes of men, إِلَى رِجَالٍ, that are praying within their homes and not praying in the masjid. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not make any mention of women folk. And that shows you that the Salatul Jama'ah is not compulsory upon them, neither is it emphasized for a lady. Is it permissible for her? Yes, it is. No. Is it encouraged for her, especially if she's at home or a group of females are together to pray in Jama'ah? Yes, it is. But it's not emphasized the way it is emphasized for males. No. He then said, Rahimahullah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the hadith and other versions of it emphasizes the importance of following up on your Muslim brothers, observing who is present and observing who is absent. And when someone is absent, to start inquiring, where is that person? Now, in the hadith of Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiyallahu ta'ala an, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam concluded Salatul Fajr. And after the Fajr prayer, the Prophet looked around and he says that, he asked the question, is so-and-so present? Ashahidun fulanun? So they said no. So he said, Ashahidun fulanun? Is so-and-so present? He said no. And then the Prophet said that these two prayers are difficult for the munafiqeen. But the hadith where Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam observed the absence of Sahaba when it came to Salah was common. He would observe absence and he would ask, where is so-and-so and where is so-and-so? In one hadith, it wasn't a munafiq, it was a Sahabi. The Prophet said, go to his home and find out why is he not in the masjid. And when they came to his home, to one of the Sahaba's home, and they were asked, the Prophet sent us to ask you, he's not seeing you in the masjid. And then he responded by saying that he only has one set of clothing with which he is able to cover his nakedness. So when the clothing gets dirty and he washes the clothing, he has nothing else to cover himself to come with to the masjid. So he has to wait until it has been washed, and then only he is able to cover himself, and then he comes to the masjid. Subhanallah. Ya Rabb. Allah allow us to understand the importance of Jama'ah. And we've previously covered, as again discussed over here, is that a person that in an Islamic country, where there's an Islamic government and Islamic court systems and Islamic judges, that a person that intentionally leaves out prayer should be killed. He'll have to appear in court, and once he appears in court, the judge will command him to pray. And if he refuses to pray, he should be killed. In the Hanafi school, they say he should not be killed immediately. He should be imprisoned, giving him time to make tawbah and to start making salah. And after a certain period elapses without him praying salah, he should be killed. And this hadith alludes to that because Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam intended to burn houses down while they were in it. Now, and I spoke previously about the impermissibility of punishing anyone with fire. And the detail of that hadith is the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala. And the Prophet initially said, if you find such and such a person, then burn him with fire. And then Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they were about to leave, he said, I commanded you, instructed you that you burn so and so with fire. وَإِنَّ النَّارَ لَا يُعَذَّبُ بِهَا. However, no one should be punished with fire, or rather no one should punish with fire save Allah. Only Allah should punish with fire. فَإِنْ وَجَدْتُمُوهُمَا. If you find these people that I instructed you should be killed, then kill them, but do not burn them. And in the hadith of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, what happened? Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala and punished persons with fire. So Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said, if I was in the place of Sayyidina Ali, I would not have punished them with fire. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, do not punish with the punishment of Allah, meaning fire. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, when he heard the words of Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, Sadaq, he has spoken the truth and I have done wrong. And that's the nature of the Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. When someone pointed out to them an error that they've made, they acknowledged the error and moved on. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was one of the greatest jurists among the Sahaba. He was a greater jurist than Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas by many degrees. Right? In terms of fiqh of deen, Sayyidina Ali was a good number of levels above Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. But here when Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas brought it to his attention that he did something wrong, he didn't apply his fiqh this way and that way, he just sadaq. He said, he's spoken the truth and I was wrong. Subhanallah. So that was the first hadith that we covered. The second hadith that Shaykh Shafi read is the hadith of a lady coming to the masjid. So he transmitted from Salim, from his father, Abdullah ibn Umar. Right? From the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا اسْتَأْذَنَتْ أَحَدَكُمْ إِمْرَأَتُهُ. If the wife of one of you seeks your permission to come to the masjid, فَلَا يَمْنَعْهَا. Then you should not prevent her from doing so. If one of your women folk asks of you to attend the masjid, you should not prevent her from attending. No. That's an interesting hadith. Because after we've established that prayer in congregation is not compulsory for women. It's not fard ayn, neither is it fard kifaya, neither is it emphasized for them. The question is, what if a lady wants to come to the masjid? The Prophet ﷺ said that if your wife seeks your permission to come to the masjid, then do not prevent her. Now, however, there are a number of conditions that needs to be mentioned alongside this hadith. So the first thing is that the fact that it's permissible for ladies to come to the masjid. In the masjid of Rasul ﷺ, women folk used to come to the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ used to pray salah, and women folk used to be at the back of his masjid. And the women folk at the back of the masjid, there was no veil between the males and the females. I find it, there are persons that the safest thing that you can ever find yourself doing is abiding by the fiqh of the madhahib. The four schools of thought, the madhahib al-arba', they are like sanctuaries for you and I. When I receive my fiqh via this medium, it's almost like I'm receiving fiqh that is sound, that has been verified, that has stood the test of time, when scholars debated masail left and right and looked at it from all angles. Right? Every mas'ala that comes within the madhahib was discussed at length, debated at length. Things were considered from all angles. If you depart from the madhahib, you're looking for trouble for yourself. Right? By way of example, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he had women folk in the masjid. Tamam. Was there a veil between women folk and men? No, there wasn't. So the women folk was at the back and the males were in front. Someone comes today, he says that, why do we have veils in our masjids? And why are the women folk behind the veil, and why can't they stand without the veil, and. And in that they would ignore so many other hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One of the practice of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was that no male could stand up from salah until the women folk left the masjid. So no one looked to the back, no one, until the women folk left the masjid. And when they left the masjid, now the men would start leaving the masjid. Otherwise they wouldn't turn around from the prayer while the women folk were still present. Right? So how do I try to justify and argue that there must be no veil and why? But I don't read the seerah in detail, and I don't consider all the other things that the ulama considered when they read. Unnecessary interaction between males and females was frowned upon within the Sharia by Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. So how do I argue one argument on the one hand while I ignore so many other things of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the other hand? And therefore I'm saying that these madhaib are sanctuaries for us. It protects us from reading the seerah, it protects us from reading hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and developing incorrect understandings. Now, then, but more of the conditions we come to a bit later, matters relating to women folk and the masjid. First of all, the hadith establishes that it is permissible. Also, the hadith merely establishes that it's permissible for a lady to come to the masjid, and not that it's encouraged for her to be in the masjid. So the ruling of the ulama is that it's mubah, permissible for her to pray in the masjid, but not necessarily encouraged. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari said that the hadith of women coming to the masjid tells us that it's permissible for them to do so. It doesn't say that it's recommended for them to do so, neither does it say it's compulsory for them to do so. No. And some drew a distinction between young women and elderly women. So they said it's permissible for young women if certain conditions are met, and it's encouraged for elderly women if certain conditions are met. No. Nonetheless, the hadith tells us that a husband cannot prevent his wife from going to the masjid if she seeks his permission and all the conditions of permissibility for her to come to the masjid are met. Then he cannot prevent her from doing so. No. Ibn Battal, he said that is when he fears no fitna for his wife. And the famous hadith of Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha is something that should be considered. And who had more knowledge of deen than the wife of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu anha. And it's so amazing that these words came from a lady and not from a male. She said if the Prophet ﷺ should have witnessed, and this is in her time, she's living in what time? The best of time. The best of time, the time of Sayyidatuna. Where does she live? Between Makkah and Medina. She said if the Prophet ﷺ should have observed what type of fitna came about after his demise, in terms of men folk and women folk, he would not have allowed women folk to come to the masjid. That was her words. Even though the scholars never adopted the words in its entirety. Right? Because she was alluding that the lady should not come to the masjid. The scholars didn't adopt what she said. The scholars took into consideration what Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said and listed certain additional conditions when she can come and when she cannot come. No. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam regarding women folk, he also said that صَلَاتُكُنَّ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَلَاتِكُنَّ فِي دُورِكُنَّ. For a lady to pray within the room in a house is better for her to pray in the general part of a house. And then he said وَصَلَاتُكُنَّ فِي دُورِكُنَّ, and for them, a lady to pray in the general part of a house is better than her praying in the masjid. أفضل من صلاتكن في مسجد الجماعة. No. Even though this particular hadith authenticity has been questioned. The hadith establishes also that now then there's a discussion. The Prophet ﷺ, when he prohibited, when he said فَلَا يَمْنَعْهَا, the husband should not prevent his wife from going to the masjid, was it a prohibition of recommendation or hujub? In other words, did the Prophet say it's haram for the husband to prevent his wife? Or did he say, mean thereby, that the husbands are encouraged not to prevent his wife? In other words, is it haram for the husband to prevent or not? You understand the question? When the Prophet said the husband should not prevent his wife, did it mean that the Prophet is encouraging husbands to not prevent their wives, but the husband still has the right to prevent her? Or is the Prophet saying it's haram for him to prevent her? Most of the ulama said that the Prophet ﷺ is encouraging the husband not to prevent the wife, not that it is haram for him to do so. If the husband still wants to prevent her, he has the right to do so. And that establishes that a lady should not leave home without the permission of a husband. However, we have customs within our society and we have understandings within our communities. And therefore, it's not incumbent upon a lady whenever she leaves home to get direct permission from the husband if the husband has given her general permission to leave home whenever she needs. Like our women folk, they have general permission to leave home when they must go collect the children from school. It's not even their duty. They're doing it to assist us. Now imagine the wife must call the husband every time. Now your battery is dead, so the child must stay at school because she didn't get through to you. There's general understanding that the wife can leave when she needs to leave. She needs to visit her parents. She needs to, whether she wants to pray in the masjid, she wants to attend a class of knowledge. Generally, a husband and wife has an understanding between themselves. Of course, if the husband is unhappy with something, then the husband could prevent his wife and prohibit her from attending, and then that's one of the instances within the home where the wife needs to show obedience to the husband. Our understanding of the obedience of a wife to a husband requires a lot of adjustment, like panel beating. Because we imagine that obedience to the husband means the wife must do whatever the husband says. No, that's not the case. The wife does not have to. In our fiqh, by way of example, they have a discussion. What should a child do when his father says he should go to such and such a school, and the mother says he should go to a different school? And some of the ulama said the child should do what the mother says, and some says he should do what the father says. And that's not the question. The question somebody asked, I remember Shaykh Umar Hussain Khatib, somebody asked him, Can the mother differ with the father if the father gave an instruction what school the son must go to? So she said, of course, that's not disobedience. She has the right to voice her opinion. And she has the right to differ with the husband. And she has the right to have different stances to him. Right? That's not obedience. Obedience that the wife needs to show to her husband is in a few instances. One of those instances is she cannot leave home without his permission. So if he says she cannot go somewhere, then she cannot go. And then also husbands, of course, need to understand that marriages are not about throwing your authority around. If a wife, I've seen husbands telling wives they can't visit their parents. Does the husband have the right to do so? Yes, he has the right to do so. Can the husband prevent parents from visiting the wife? Some of ulama say yes, he can even prevent the parents from visiting. But now if you're going to play your rights in a marriage, you're going to lose. Every husband that wishes he wants to fight his wife for the rights that he has in a marriage, you will lose the marriage. Because if a wife turns around tomorrow to claim her rights in a marriage, khalas. She doesn't have to clean. She doesn't have to cook. She has to do nothing. It's not her duty to clean the home. It's not her duty to cook for you 3 times a day. It's not her duty to even take care of your children. Like she can technically charge you to take care of your own children. She can charge you to breastfeed your own children. Right? If you want to play a game of rights with your wife, you're definitely going to lose. They do much more for us that they're not supposed to than what we do for them that we're not supposed to. So you should consider that before you try to fight a game of rights with your wife. Don't fight a game of rights with your wife. Now, in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, do not prevent the female slaves of Allah from the houses of Allah. However, there are conditions. What are the conditions? The conditions emanates from primarily a few hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. From those conditions is that وَلْيَخْرُجْنَ تَفِلَاتٍ. They should read tafilat. Tafilat comes from the word tafal. And that means, generally refers to something that has a bad smell. Tafal refers to a bad odor. They should read tafilat. And what tafilat means, they should leave home and they shouldn't have any scent on them that may draw the attraction of a strange male. Now, that is a ghaya. If she should leave home in such a state that not a strange male shouldn't even catch her scent, then you can imagine what other conditions are based upon that. If a strange male shouldn't catch her scent, then what about her wearing clothing that are attractive to males? What about her uncovering the awrah? Right? That's now a ghaya. And therefore, from that, the scholars will develop many other. She can come to the masjid, but it's haram if she applied perfume to her body. She can come to the masjid, but she mustn't wear clothing that may attract the opposite sex to her. She can come, but she must be, by and large, hidden from strange males. Not that they should be, not hidden away in a negative sense, but hidden away in a modest sense. There shouldn't be unnecessary engagement or interaction between her and strange males. If the Prophet ﷺ said that she should leave home tafilat, such that there's without perfume, without any scent, he made it haram for her to leave home with perfume, that will attract strange males. Then if she cannot attract them with the perfume, then what about with her words, or with her smiles, or with her soft speech, or with whatever other ways in which a lady usually attracts a man? So it doesn't make sense for us to highlight one aspect of the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to not prevent women from the masjid, or a husband should not prevent his wife if she seeks permission to come to the masjid, ila akhiri, and then we ignore all these other narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And therefore we say that I'm going to sum up this discussion because I see it's already time for salah. The general attitude of scholars within our community is that we encourage our women folk to be present in the masjid. In a sense that they are here with children, they grow up in the environment of the masjid. Children grow up in the environment of a masjid. Our women folk attend gatherings of dhikr, they attend classes of knowledge. And we encourage that because when the wife in a home or the mother in a home is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala via the houses of Allah and via the masajid and via gatherings of dhikr and via classes of knowledge, then the whole house benefits. Connect the mother to Allah, you have connected the whole family to Allah. Therefore the scholars said, al-ummu madrasatun, the mother is a madrasa, she is an institute, she is a university. If you rectify her, then you've rectified the entire nation. A whole country is rectified, you've rectified its mothers. And therefore we believe it's something which is encouraged. Encouraged in what sense? In a general sense, not to contradict what is mentioned within our fiqh. Because in our fiqh merely says it's permissible for her, not encouraged for her to attend. We're encouraging women folk to attend more programs and gatherings of dhikr and knowledge that are taking place within masajid for the express purpose and intention that by assisting our women folk in developing relationships with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their children, we are creating a possibility, we are creating the space for our communities to be uplifted. However, with that encouragement, the words of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam should not be ignored. We should avoid all unnecessary contact between males and females. For a man to meet a lady at a dhikr and to have discussions with her is un-Islamic. It's not encouraged. And depending on the nature of that discussion, may very well be haram. So what's the use? I'm coming to a dhikr while I'm committing haram. I'm doing that which is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the very least, the lady's awrah must be covered. Now, when it comes to our women folk, another thing that I must share over here is that when it comes to our women folk, especially in relation to awrah and the wearing of a scarf and hijab and so forth and so on, is that we have challenges within society. And when we have these challenges in society, a lady that has never been in hijab and never covered her hair, for her to take that step in her life can be very challenging. And you don't know what challenges she faces, like you have other challenges in your life. And sometimes all of us require a bit of sabr and a bit of patience, right? And we need to grant people opportunities to grow. A lady that may not be covering herself 100% according to the Sharia, the minute you come too hard down on that lady, you may chase her away. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Allah said to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran, if you are a hard, harsh-natured person, غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ, coarse heart, غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ, everyone would have fled from you and no one would have benefited from you. Therefore, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sahl al-khuluq, easy in his character, layyin al-janib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everyone okay there? Right? Ajib. Right? So women folk, I think in general, we all just need to have more patience with each other. We need to play more a role of encouragement than a role of haram and you are cursed, or Allah is displeased with you. We need to be more encouraging in the way we address matters, in the way we speak to each other, whether it's male to male or female to female, or challenges that the male is facing or challenges that a female is facing. Where we have control over situations, we apply Allah's law to its entirety and to its fullest. Where I don't have full control, I encourage with kindness and with subtlety and with lutf. And with that, I make dua for the person that may be going through any particular challenge. Right? I see my Muslim brother challenging with something, make dua for him. My sister challenge with something, make dua for her. But as far as possible, without being harsh and without being ill-mannered and without chasing any woman folk away, we say that a lady should not, for the very least, her awrah must be covered, her hair should be in. If our women folk, when coming into a space where strange males may be looking at them, then it's encouraged, very much encouraged for them to even cover their faces. Right? That's all what is desired within our deen. That's the way of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. So there's two sides to our interaction on a local level over here. Especially since we don't have many spaces that are dedicated for the spiritual development of females. If I look at a country such as Yemen or a city such as Tarim, at none of the masajid you'll find females. At none of the musallas you'll find females. But in the absence of them at the masjid or musalla, there's many special dedicated spaces and programs for them. Women folk have more gatherings of dhikr and salawat and classes of knowledge and in their own schools and spaces of prayer and learning than what males have. If you're a lady, you have more gatherings to attend, ladies only, than what you have males. We don't have that in our society. We should perhaps strive towards that, but we don't have it. Keep women folk away from the masjids and keep them away from madrasas. Where do they go? What do they have? They have no place to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No places to encourage them to be better mothers, to be better sisters, to be better Muslims. Right? And therefore, just taking a blanket ruling and keeping women folk away from our places of learning, madrasas and masajid, we'll be doing more harm to society. We'll imagine that I'm following a hadith here and a hadith there, but I'll be actually doing more harm to society. So while women folk are encouraged, I mentioned, to attend masjids and to attend madrasas and to be part of these gatherings of khair, at the same time, we need to be very strict in implementing the other side of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is no unnecessary mixing, no unnecessary talking, covering of the awrah, veils, even to the extent that one should, if it's preferable for a lady, even to cover her face when she comes to a masjid, to a class of knowledge. Even if she's not doing it in a daily life. But we should try to uphold the other side that is spoken about by Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's saying that she should leave home without a scent coming from her body. And he said it's haram for her to leave home after applying perfume to her body. Because she may catch the attraction with the scent. If she cannot attract the attraction of if it's haram for her to attract the attention of a strange male with scent, then what about clothing? What about beauty? What about makeup? What about a nice hijab? What about? Right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I believe this is the balance. So we encourage women folk again, be part of the khair and the good. Now it's best in the time of duha, ishraq and duha has entered, so we conclude seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance and forgiveness and pardon, seeking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rectify our states, seeking that Allah women folk and their attachment to Sayyidah Fatima Zahra and Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa and Khadija al-Kubra and the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant our homes to resemble the homes of the Sahaba. May our women folk start chasing their husbands to the masjid, so we can all be more regular in praying in congregation and praying in Jama'ah. May these lessons not just be lessons that we heard and go home, but may it weigh heavy on my heart that when I'm not praying in the masjid, that's a sign of a munafiq. When I'm not praying in the masjid, the Prophet may have desired to burn my house down. I'm making so much effort for the tile and the paint in my house, but the Prophet was unhappy with me when I prayed at home. Allah make us from those who are regular in them. Allah make us regular musallis. I always say the best title any person can have in this dunya is the title of a regular musalli. May Allah make us regular musallis. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. بهذه النوايا بما نوى سلفنا صالح وبما نوى سيد الحبيب عمر وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.